What's going on, everybody? Welcome to lunch with the Clydesdale. Today, I have my good buddy Jay Birch here in the room, and it looks like Andrew Sten is may have some video issues. We're coming. Maybe we're coming. We will patiently await his arrival. But we are here to do Top 5 Tuesday. And Top 5 Tuesday this week is going to be the top 5 hardest movements to judge at both an in-person competition and an online video review. So once Andrew gets in, we'll talk about that. There's a ton of news going around the space right now. And Jay Birch, I'm going to mute you while I just talk for a second. And so there's a ton of news. We're not going to get into a lot of that today because of this topic today, but Emma Lawson has joined Brute. The WFP qualifiers end tonight. And so, yeah, Andrew's having a few technical issues. We will hopefully he can get those rectified soon. So we have Emma Lawson going to Brute. We have the qualifiers done today. We have Tier Wadapalooza SoCal has announced their dates for this fall. Lots of stuff going on. I also listened to the Rich Froning podcast, which actually I have a really cool question I want to ask of you guys. But we'll probably do that tomorrow when we have a little bit more time. So, Andrew, if you can hear me, go ahead and log out and try to log back in one more time if you can and see if that works. And hopefully we can get you back in here. So, Jay Birch, I'm going to unmute you. What I wanted to ask you is, you have judged in some like TFX. You do a lot of judging around local comps. How long have you been judging, and at what competitions?
All right, so I've judged for 5 years. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Okay. I've judged for 5 years. The majority of what I've done has been with TFX. I have judged one of the Mayhem competitions up in Amarillo this last summer, which was an interesting thing because I did it as part of the AFJ team, the Association of Fitness Judges, which was pretty insightful. And so I really enjoyed doing that. And then I've done some team qualifier competitions with TFX that weren't the main competition.
Do you have, are you going to be on the docket for any comps this year?
So I'm not for sure how it'll work out, but I am supposed to go to TFX in Oklahoma City.
Okay, cool.
And so, I'm still, there's some of the competitors there that the competition is not necessarily going to take them to the games. And so it's just within the invitational. So that might be who I'm judging rather than some of the top tier athletes, if the stipulation of having somebody with an L1 is part of that. But from everything that I've seen so far, the only need for an L1 is for those that are doing it in an affiliate, that are doing their semifinals in an affiliate. So,
yeah. So what made you want to become a judge?
So just watching competitions, doing some online comps myself whenever I first started doing CrossFit. And, I kind of talked with some people and, talked about, how I can be more involved. And of course, Road was one that I really wanted to be involved with. But as you know, it's very difficult to be a part of that. But I wanted to figure out how I could be more of a part of the community. Having been a former coach and also been a referee for like flag football games in college, intramural sports and stuff like that, I just thought it might be a good opportunity. And so I threw my name in the hat and got picked to judge at TFX, which it's a great group to work with. And I've always, and I continue to enjoy, looking at the methodology from the sports side through that lens. And it's, as you've done it before. It's not an easy job. It can be tough, but if it wasn't for the judges and all the volunteers and everybody that comes together, the sport itself wouldn't even be a sport. So
yeah,
I'm spending my time in that way.
Yeah, it's I'll give a little bit of my background as Andrew's still wrestling with the technical difficulties. So I started as a volunteer, and I didn't start as a judge. I started in more of like special needs kind of thing, where I just ran to wherever the gopher needed to go to get the case of water or to hand out this or to do that. And then I started working security at a lot of the regionals in the teens. And then I ended up volunteering at the games on the equipment crew for the outdoor field. And then I wanted to be a judge. And so I talked to Sue Burton, who is big in the volunteer world. And she kind of coached me on what I needed to do to prep myself and to prep my resume to be able to judge on the upper level of stuff. Went through all of that and ended up judging at the 2018 regionals. And then from there, I got Rogue, a couple other big events. Probably the most fun weekend I've ever had is the COVID year of Rogue when they did the online competition. And I got to be Saxon Panchek's judge for that, which was really awesome. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would have been a cool time. Luckily, I have had the opportunity to work with lots of upper level games judges, rogue judges, and so that's been a great learning experience for me too.
Yeah. So for me, my perspective on judging movements, there's two things, and we're not going to focus on these, but there are things that make it harder to judge in person for sure. And that is how much space you as a judge have, whether there's a broadcast going on. Do you have to avoid cameras? Do you have to be out of the way? Do you have to be out of the way of spectators? So with all of that, that makes things difficult. I remember at the 2018 regionals, there was a handstand and push-up part of the workout. They had 20 people across 10 lanes, and the space under the rig to get near the wall to see the handstand push-up was very, very difficult. Made that movement very hard to judge. But what we're going to talk about is just overall, when you're judging somebody, what are your top 5 movements that are the hardest to judge, meaning hardest to make the call on?
Right. And so looks like Andrew went off again.
He's going to try a different mode of getting in.
And I'm running a little slow. It's my wife is in the back also using part of the internet, so I apologize. But so some of mine overlap, and I figure I'll go ahead and start with number 5 on my list was double unders. And in person, it's not the movement that's necessarily the issue. It can be sometimes with everything going on around you, losing count. That can be difficult with double unders. Now, I guess it was. Go ahead.
I think the hardest part of double unders is communicating with the athlete. Because by the time you get out what you want to say, they're already like 10 reps past what you just said.
Yeah. And then they stop, they get frustrated, you get frustrated, and There he is.
There, I'm on my phone. The computers aren't working very well today for this.
So we're on Jay Birch's number 5 in person hardest movements to judge.
All right. I heard him say double unders.
He did. You want to finish
what do
your
you
thought,
think,
Jay Birch?
Andrew?
Then we'll go to Andrew.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, the athlete gets frustrated, you get frustrated. And then I guess it was year before last, we had to judge triple unders, which, ensuring that, you get 3 swings, and because you get used to that sound of, woo, 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 woo,
Who did triple unders?
TFX.
That's
So Andrew, what's your number 5?
I went with overhead squats.
Okay.
Mostly because, it's light overhead squats, because there's a big controversy a couple years ago at Rogue where they had light overhead squats, and when top athletes move quickly, they do not extend the hips. They're like that. They're not that. And honestly, it doesn't even matter sometimes the weight. People don't stand up. They don't extend their hips on overhead squats. They think they are, but they don't. So
yeah, and because they're trying to balance weight over their head, the natural inclination is to lean forward a little bit to balance that. So it makes it harder to extend the hips.
Yeah. So and it makes sense, but
right.
I had a discussion with with an athlete friend of mine who his deal had to do a lot with anything where you're having to go to depth on something, and whether or not it should be, whether the standard should be completely or whether you leave it, to where it's more the judge's decision on what's complete and what's not complete.
Well, every competition will have their own standards and what they're looking for. So that's one thing I wish they would explain in their streaming competitions. Because you see people post online, like, oh, they aren't doing this, they aren't doing this. Like, well, we weren't told to be looking for that.
Right.
So.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing is people don't always understand what you as the judge within the competition have been briefed on what to look for.
Right.
What blows my mind is they don't let media into athlete briefings.
Yeah.
Especially the broadcast team.
Yeah, they need to have someone from broadcast in there so they know what the judges are looking for.
Yep.
Exactly.
And they know the standard that's supposed to be met so that they're not second guessing a judge for no reason at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right, let's go number 4.
For me, it was cleans. And
elbows?
so elbows and hips and knees. I don't know if you saw the latest Tiller video on Tia and Rich, and I did get the opportunity this summer to judge Rich, and I can kind of see because he was doing cleans on what I was judging him on, and it's him and Luke, and he is so fast, which that's the other thing is, judging in person, the speed with which some athletes move is just, phenomenal. But you get it, in that, to looking at an athlete, and they could be extended in their knees and hips, but because they're on their way up from already having their elbows under the bar, that they then start to move out from underneath the bar. And so everything is not together. And that can be kind of difficult.
Andrew, number 4.
My number 4 was double unders.
Okay. So we're a match.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you get so many that your mind starts to go after about 50. It starts to like at Syndicate last year, I think we had to do 100 per athlete. And sometimes when they would stop, you're like, you tell them a number and they're like, no, it's like, no, that's the number you're on. It's like, yeah, you're on this number. Just keep going.
Yeah.
Dropping, they taught us drop the finger to know what of the 10s you're on.
Mm-hmm.
Just worry about the singles. But like I said on the last one, communication with the athlete is the hardest part of a double under.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it moves so fast. By the time you get it out, they're past. Yeah. So that's cool. Double unders a match. Let's go to number 3.
Legless rope climbs. And the reason that I say legless rope climbs is in person, one of the things that you have to really watch for is as they're going up the rope, they'll start to do that kip thing with their feet and they'll clinch with their legs.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be, if you don't know to watch for it, it can be an advantage to the athlete sometimes.
Yeah.
It's not as strict.
Yeah, sometimes that's tough. Like it's hard to tell sometimes if it's like intentional, like they're doing it to or if it's just like their legs happen to come together, and it's a fine line.
Right.
And it's really close at the touch. When they're reaching for the touch, a lot of times is when that clinch will happen.
Yeah.
And which comes first, because that makes a difference whether rep or no rep.
Yeah. Did they touch and then clinch, or did they clinch and then touch?
Yep. Andrew, what do you got for number 3?
Number 3 for in person, any 4-person synchronized movement.
Oh.
So the easiest one is anything with the worm, because then if you're gonna have a team competition, you always throw a worm in there. Any kind of, mostly squatting with the worm. You're trying to watch four butts and then 4 hip creases, and sometimes they're like, get the little wave. But then the games, sometimes they'll throw in, you're going to look at 4-person synchronized muscle ups. That was fun. And then they had 4-person synchronized double unders. That was just like, you're just like,
You're just guessing at that moment.
Yeah, you're watching one person, and you can kind of see the other 3 when they get out of sync. It's just like, so 4-person synchro movements is like super, super tough.
Heidi Kroom comes in. Doesn't matter if it's intentional or not. It's still a no rep, whether you didn't mean to or you did. And I think she's talking about the clinching on
right. Well, it's that's where it comes into play, where the standards for what the head judges tell you to look for.
For the
if it's a quick clinch where it's like that the legs happen to come together, is it giving them an advantage right there, or are they clinching to hold? The leg that's where the judge discretion comes into play.
Yeah, I think that's where things get messy at the highest levels, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
because it really you need to have a more black and white line for the judge to be in the right position to succeed.
Mm-hmm. And it's really fun, like when you're doing legless, when they start to turn on the rope, and you're on one side and they turn the other way. You're like, I can't see them.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so we're gonna, and Heidi says, not really, no clinch at all. I think that's the black and white it needs to be. That's right. A lot of times you do a comp where people don't realize that if the judge isn't giving us a very understood, strict standard, black and white, it puts the judge in a very bad place. Because if you don't, one judge interprets it one way, one judge interprets it another way, and that's where you get the big controversy. And because Jay Birch looks wise and fatherly, we're going to go with number 2.
All right. So number 2 for me is handstand push-ups. because you're having to watch the athlete, make sure that they lock the elbows out, make sure that they're, stacked through their hips, knees, and their feet are on the wall. And I mean, it's just a whole series of things to have to make sure that are done in order for that rep to count.
Yeah. When I first was judging, it was the don't allow the Brooke Wells technique. And that is the butt kind of being close to the wall.
Right.
And the best description that I ever was given was if you flip them right side up and they were pushing a barbell overhead, would they be stacked from front to bottom, top to bottom?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that helped me a ton understand that you really can't extend that butt out while you're doing a handstand push-up.
Yeah. It's an overhead press. That's what it is. It's just an overhead squat.
They're just inverted.
Right.
But if you flip them right side up, would they be? Yeah. What's your number 2, Andrew?
My number 2 is similar. It's wall walks. And mostly it's the, they tell you, okay, hands can't move until the feet are off the wall or off the ground, or the feet have to be on the wall until the hands touch the tape. Well, then you're trying to look this way and that way at the same time. You're trying to watch the hands on one side, but also trying to make sure the feet are over here. It's like it's really difficult to watch 2 spots at the same time, even though you use peripheral vision. Normally it's a bang bang. It's a really difficult standard to try to. It's easier on the way up. I think on the way down, it's like just come down, hands on the tape. It's like I don't care if you're what touches first, as long as you finish lying flat on the ground with your hands on the tape and feet on the ground. That should be the standard.
Yeah, and especially someone moving like Colton Mertens does on a handstand.
That video. I watched that. He went on Savant on Kill Taylor. I'm like, I'm watching those wall walks. I'm like, there's no way I'd be sitting there going, that's like, he was like doing a burpee. He was so fast.
Yep. All right, we're to the number 1.
My number 1 is wall balls. Hate them.
Because no one goes to depth.
Because nobody goes to depth, and then it's a matter of where the ball hits the target. Is it hitting it on its way up and back down? Is it hitting it on its way up? Is it, and it's the center of the ball. And, that's another athlete thing that, sometimes they don't hear in the briefing or whatever, that it's, in most competitions, it's the ball has to go up and hit the target on the way up, not kind of loop and then come back down and hit it. Because a lot of times that's considered a no rep. Now, if you watch the CrossFit video of a wall ball on YouTube, there's one of those that it does go up and then come back down and hits the target. And so I can understand why they might think that that's a rep, but yeah, getting to depth is the hardest for a lot of them.
Again, I've been briefed at different competitions where they allow the loop of the ball.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it difficult too, is there are multiple standards across different competitions.
Right.
But the biggest favor any competition director can do is to set up that wall ball target where everything on the target is above the 10-foot or 9-foot line.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the people that say you have to hit the center of the target because of the way that's set up, that makes things so much more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just above the line. Just like hit it above the line.
Yep. Where if they put that like the 9-foot mark right at the bottom of the target, then and it hits anything on that face, then it's good.
Yeah.
Heidi, I never go to depth. Why would I? D. Reed, that is why the squat is a foundational movement.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part for wall balls for me is that my neck hurts.
Yeah.
It is a literal
Up,
like
down, up, down.
or especially if it's a lot.
If you're far enough away, you don't have to do it as much. You can step back a little bit. I've heard
Which-
some head judges, their team leads say, like, especially if something's being on video, they don't want to see a judge doing any kind of head bobs because it looks strange on TV.
Yeah, like the row of double under judges going.
Well, that's Scott talking about proximity to athletes and other judges, and having like 20 lanes and 20 athletes all at the same time. You're all right there together, and they're doing wall balls, and they drop the ball on you or whatever. And then whenever you're talking about handstand push-ups or wall walks, there's been so many times I nearly got kicked or seen other judges get kicked because you're just right there together.
Yeah.
Corey Leonard, at Legends, my judge thanked me for hitting depth on my wall balls. Proud moment right there.
All right.
So Andrew, what's your number one?
My number one is chin over bar pull-ups.
Okay.
It's like whether it's kipping, or the dreaded strict pull-up that Wadapalooza did 2 years ago for the rain. It's just, you're not in a good position to ever see the chin higher than the bar. Like, if someone's doing butterfly pull-ups, you're like, you like, the best spot is being level with the bar so you can see that chin go over. But usually you're in front or at an angle. You're like, you might be able to see a shadow, but you just almost have to guess that. Okay, yeah, it looks like their chins. Now, some people get pretty obvious with their height, their head, like way above the bar. But some people on their butterfly pull-ups, they're so close. Like, so, and then strict pull-ups, like, they should never ever be in the competition.
Yeah,
I know
as a vertically challenged.
It was done at Wadapalooza for safety reasons, but no judge was judging to the same standard, because some judges were like, "Hey, your feet are moving, like it's an over." Well, your body, the rest of your body is going to move a little bit when you pull yourself up, so your legs are going to move as long as you're not like bending your knees and kicking and getting an advantage that way. It's like, so it was a mess. But I'd rather see chest to bar pull-ups in a competition, because those are so easy to judge.
Yeah, I remember I judged a young lady one time, and she was doing butterfly pull-ups, but she would arch so much that she thought she was getting them, but her chin was like just right there at the, whenever you think about the plane of the bar coming out and her crossing that plane. And she was not happy, but I'm like, you gotta get your head up where I can see your chin.
D. Reed asked this question: what is the impact on the elites skirting the standards on box members?
Well, it depends on if the elites actually go to a box to work out.
Right.
And if the members actually see them work out.
But I do think like box members that watch the sport, which is really a low percentage, from what I've experienced at different boxes, is that, there's a small percentage that actually watch the sport and like talk about it. I think the skirting of the standards comes more from competition with you and other people in your gym more than watching an elite athlete do it.
Yeah. And then that comes down to the coaches in the gym saying, "Hey, don't do what they're doing."
Right.
Like, you squat to death, because they're trying to race. They're riding, like, think of it like an auto racer. They're on that edge of, like, how far can I push this car to where it turns but not turn enough to where I spin out. That's what the elites are doing.
Yeah, we don't go down I-71 at 200 miles an hour just because Jeff Gordon did it last weekend. Right. All right. So because we're already past like halfway mark of this lunch hour. Your online list, just tell me what's different and why it's different from we'll go back and forth, but something that's different from your list on online and why it makes a difference online to in person. We'll start with Andrew this time.
The only thing I had really different was anything that has a distance to move. Like no lunging for distance or shuttle runs or that. Only because the way a camera is set up, and if you've ever done video review, we all know camera setups are people are just, I don't understand their thinking sometimes with the camera setups. It's, but it's often the camera's not in the best position to see, did they cross the line? Did they get all the way? Did that? No, in person, if someone's lunging for a distance, the judge is right there watching that foot. Okay, is that foot on the line? Okay, you got one more lunge. If someone's doing the workout by themselves in the gym, they don't have someone judging them. There's no one there to tell them that. And then, if it was a judge there, they can tell them like one more, so then they wouldn't get a penalty on a video review. So that's one thing I don't like, or one of the many things I don't like about video, like online competition.
What kind of in line with that, the further the distance, the better quality camera we would hope you would have. And we know, like the iPhone now, the lowest resolution is high def. Yet you see videos where people must be using an LG slide from 2008 to video these things because it is so blurry and so hard to see. But you can make movie quality stuff with an iPhone. The fact that they're not makes you believe that they're trying to hide something.
Right. And whether or not they use landscape or whether they use, the other view, that makes a difference too.
Yeah. And I like that in the advanced judges course, they talk about that. They have something in there saying, hey, use landscape, use landscape view. Don't use the portrait view.
Yeah. Jay Birch, do you have anything different on your list?
And so I had ring muscle ups. You'd mentioned ring muscle ups and thrusters as online as kind of being, kind of iffy here and there.
I think anything that depends on the camera angle makes it hard. What I loved about when Rogue did their online competition is there was a very set floor layout and the height at which you set your camera. And they had they had 2 cameras per box. Now they were broadcasting with those cameras, so like it had to be set up that way. But they had a spot for the judge, they had a spot for the athlete. Everything was laid out in that online format with Rogue. The only thing that was crazy for me during that time was Saxon was snatching something big. It would like in the high 200s, and like where the judge had to be like was scary. You were in front of them for that snatch with all that weight, and in the box they gave, there wasn't a lot of room, and you had to be ready to move if they missed.
Yeah. What was fun about that also is when you had the earpiece in, and sometimes Rob or Drake would be on there and be like, Andrew, move to your left. Like what? Like literally in the middle. They'd be talking to a specific judge.
Yep. Kenneth asked, with CrossFit, does Ty go to the runner or no? No, it's actually opposite.
Depends. See that's sometimes that's in person. Sometimes they in the judges briefs they'll tell us, hey, like
at a CrossFit competition, if CrossFit's running it, I've never been, but I would.
It depends on the movement. It's especially the biggest one that that I've heard is like a rope climb, especially a legless rope climb, because it's such an expensive rep that if you call a no rep, they come down. that's a lot of energy that person just wasted on a rep. So if it's, bang, bang, if it's like so close, like if you think it's a tie, sometimes I'll say tie goes to the runner on that one. So it does happen. You're muted.
You're muted.
That's a big shift because in the mid to late teens, like Boz and Chuck were very much about if any doubt, it always is a no rep.
Yeah, I mean, there are some things that are that way, but on things that are super expensive reps, where it's like it's been said where they'll let the tie go to the runner.
Yeah. I think like one thing that's interesting is in all of sports, everybody complains about judging, refereeing, umpiring. Everybody, like it is universal. People say it's bad in CrossFit because it's volunteers. I would say the volunteers in CrossFit do just as good of a job as the referees in the NFL. Right? Like, and there are just as many, if not more, complaints in the NFL as there are at a CrossFit competition. And if you watch any judged event where things are scored, like there are people livid about the way things are scored by judges in ice skating, diving, and those events. Are you guys both members of the FJ?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think that has done for judging in this space?
It's still pretty new, so they're still getting things together. I know that they're actively, at Wildapalooza they had like one of their first kind of in-person seminars, which was really cool. Having games level athletes there, like Con Porter and Alex Kazan were there to demonstrate and give feedback to judges on what athletes are thinking on that side. And then they were actively evaluating judges while they were judging. So that I think this is the first year that they're really kind of doing that. So it'll take a little time for that to kind of ramp up. But competitions are starting to look to the AFJ to staff their competitions. So it's getting known in the space as people who are highly qualified and knowledgeable about the judging and can help raise the level of judging at a competition.
So I believe I heard that Mayhem is bringing in AFJ judges for the Classic.
Yep.
That is correct.
Did I see the WFP is doing that as well?
Not sure.
So.
Okay. Maybe I just dreamt that or something. What about TFP?
I think the WFP did partner with AFJ to have some judges there, but I don't know if their entire competition is going to be supplied by AFJ judges.
Any other ones that you guys know of?
I think Metcon Rush. I think they used them last year, at least for some of the lead positions or, for head judging and things like that. I know there's some smaller competitions that have used them to help, bring in a couple. Now, I think that the goal of the AFJ is that not like they staff the entire thing, but they sprinkle in some experienced judges to help, mentor and spread the knowledge to newer judges that are at these competitions. It was
reported that Wodapalooza was going to be the first time AFJ were going to judge their judges. Do you know did that happen? And did you judge there, Andrew? Did you get feedback?
Well, I was a head judge.
Okay.
So I wasn't actually on the floor. I was briefing athletes in the athlete area, but I do know that the AFJ was there actively evaluating judges in real time. Like while they're on, they would watch them during an event and evaluate the judge and how they did.
And did they give them immediate feedback, or was that post comp?
Not sure. I think it was more post comp.
Okay.
But
Still,
but I'm not 100% sure on that.
Anything to help level up the judging community is a good thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, and every competition, like head judges, they've always said, hey, if you want feedback. I mean, even CrossFit evaluates their judges. They don't make it public, and they don't always necessarily they don't have like a evaluation like criteria that I know of. But I mean, they're watching the judges, and so that's why sometimes you'll hear judges not coming back next year, in the following year. And
when I did the 2018 regionals, we were judged, or we were evaluated.
Mm-hmm.
Top 20 take the floor. Next 20 are the backup judges on the sidelines, and then the other 40 did not have to come on Sunday. And that was during the regional days. So you start the weekend with 80 judges for Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday it's down to the top 40. With the top 20 only taking the floor, and the next 20 being the backup counters and judges in what would be the media pit.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of crouched down doing the having a lane themselves to judge from there. And I don't even know if people know that even happens.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, because they don't make it public. They don't necessarily. They won't come to you. CrossFit, in my experience, is never like after a CrossFit competition come to me and said, "Hey, here's your evaluation."
Right.
It's more like, "Hey, like you go to the head judge and say, hey, like, can I get some feedback?" Yeah. And for them, like sometimes it's tough. The head judges, they're not necessarily always looking at individual judges. That's more up to the team leads. If they have people split into teams, the head judges kind of rely on them for the feedback, because they're actively watching 10 judges. Like, that's my team. I'm going to watch these 10 people and pass the feedback up.
We didn't get a written evaluation, but you knew if you were top 20 or the next 20, and you knew if you were bottom 40. Mm-hmm. And throughout the weekend, he would tell you, hey, try this, or hey, try that. And of course, if something was going down on the floor, you got tapped on the shoulder by the head judge, look for this, or you need to look for that, or whatever. So you do get those feedbacks immediately. But then at the end of the weekend, that's all you knew back in those days.
Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. Well, thank you so much for jumping on with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
You bet.
Appreciate
it.
Yeah. Got to highlight the judges. You guys work hard out there.
Try to.
Well, guys, our lunch hour is just about up, so time to get back to work, you hooligans, and we'll see everybody next time on Lunch with the Clydesdale. Bye, guys.
See ya.